Good evening, and thank you all for being here. Tonight, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Smith County Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber has been a vital partner in Smith County's growth and development over the past 55 decades. The list of wins and accomplishments are quite lengthy throughout the years, from the Smith County Industrial Park that has provided jobs for our neighbors and families, to the recent efforts to highlight and increase tourism, and so much in between. Tonight, I offer my heartfelt thanks to the men and women that had the vision to create the Chamber. Smith County would not be what it is today without their sacrifice and dedication. As I was reflecting back over the past year and preparing for this speech, it dawned on me that I want to thank you all for your prayers and encouragement over the past year. 1 year ago this week, actually 1 year ago tomorrow, we found out news that changed our world. My wife Amanda was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's fought her battle, and we had her last treatment in the major snowstorm in January. She was worried to death that she wasn't going to make her last treatment, and I said, honey, if I got to call and get a bulldozer to get you down there, we're going to get you to that last treatment. She's cancer-free, and we no longer take each day for granted. I am blessed to have her, because in the past 3 weeks I have attended 2 funerals of counterparts and their wives in Trousdale and Cumberland County. This job is hard, but it's harder on the families. I couldn't do this job without her, because she's my biggest fan, but she's also my best critic. And I don't want to imagine doing this without her. And also, I reflected back over, I came to the time in October when I told the story of mine and Bill's adventure in the electric car. In respect to our featured speaker and his beliefs of electric cars, I will not tell that story again. Nor do I share those beliefs about electric vehicles. If you haven't heard the story, find me later. I'll tell it. There are several text strings that will detail the account from several people. I believe the senator actually left me in Sparta and came to Carthage that night. As I said many times, Smith County is still what's right with the world. But we have to make sure we steward our values and our beliefs for future generations to come. Our world rapidly changes, and we learn to adapt. This year, I had the honor to be selected to Appalachian Regional Leadership, and I, along with 41 others from the 14-state Appalachian region, are fellows of the 23-24 class. I was excited to be included, but apprehensive at best. As I looked at the list of my classmates before the first class, I was reminded of the song of our childhood from the program, which one of these things is not like the other. Because I'm in a group that's a lot of PhDs and doctorates. I'm just a rural county mayor trying to keep a county progressing. But I've learned that we may be different, but we share the same desire to make our communities better. I was in Kentucky last week learning about tourism and how it helps your community. And that's just one of the many topics that I've learned about. And my goal is to take the information, the connections, and the knowledge from this experience to continue to make sure we are making Smith County better every day. As a county, we face many challenges and changes, but tonight I want to share information on a few topics of importance. Number 1 is our financial standing, number 2 being our county roads, and number 3 being solid waste or the landfill. First, we'll discuss our financial standing. In June of 2019, 10 months into my first term, we finished the year with a little over $300,000 in cash. Steps were taken to alleviate that problem. One of those steps was not popular, as it raised revenue through property taxes. And at that time, I promised you, the Smith County citizens, that when the county reached a better financial standing, the county would decrease part of that tax increase. We reached it in 2 years. Now, some have criticized that decision And we can debate all day long whether we should have or should not have. But at the end of the day, I gave you, the taxpayers and citizens, my word that I would do it. This year, in June of 2024, we will end with over $8 million in cash and fund balance. We have worked to become more efficient and effective and transparent in all that we do. While $8 million seems like a lot of money, we will continue to find ways to get the most bang for our buck. A couple of projects that I like to see funded over the next year is to beginning to rehab our historic courthouse. Preliminary estimates say it's going to be over $1 million to just replace the windows and the heat and air. It is something we have to do, even if it's in phases, to preserve that and maintain our historic building. We have searched high and low for grants. We've not been successful in winning one, but we will continue to search for other funding to offset local dollars. Hint, hint, Senator Bailey. Mr. Hale. Another project is we're looking to try to build a new emergency services building on the property the rescue squad acquired from the AG farm on the bypass in Gornsville. We received a grant a couple of years ago to purchase a new rescue apparatus for the south side. Because of the call volumes increasing on the interstate, we felt that we needed one over there. So we'll need a place to keep it. The building would also provide a space for an ambulance and its living quarters for crews, and we also intend to add space for fire. We are rapidly moving towards full-time fire as our current firemen age out and new volunteers are not filling that gap. Part of that cost we'll offset by selling the current EMS station in Gornsville. We have in the past 5 years tried to stay competitive with our wages and benefits in order to retain and recruit good employees. As you all as business owners know very well, that cost to keep and recruit has risen since the pandemic. Our financial standing is significantly improved over the past 6 years, but every day we continue to strive to be better. Now, many of you probably drove on a county road to get here tonight. And while there has been improvements, we have a long way to go. In the past 2 years, we've been able to find about $2.5 million to move over to the highway department to repair roads. But as I told Highway Superintendent Mr. Mickey Barrett in the Budget Committee the other day, I have dug up every mason jar and searched every couch cushion, and I've about found all I can do. We used our ARPA funds the first year and shuffled tax appropriations last year. I can't find another million for this year. We did a road study last year, and the number came back just to get our roads to a fair condition. Now, we understand we have 411 miles of county roads. Just to get them back to a fair condition was $60 million. We're in the process of starting a study on our bridges and stormwaters. I fear that's going to be just as staggering, if not more. And I'm afraid of what some of the reports will come back to tell us on our infrastructure as far as stormwater removal. In today's world, to tar and chip 1 mile of road is about $60,000, and that's us doing it ourselves with the equipment we have. A mile of pavement is around $250,000. So the numbers are staggering, the prices have gone up. So Road Commissioner Mickey Barrett is doing all he can with not enough equipment, not enough staff, or not enough funding. We must work together as government and taxpayers to find a way to keep funding flowing to the Highway Department for Mr. Barrett. Next is solid waste. In the late 80s, county executive at that time, C.E. Hackett, opened a landfill in Smith County, Tennessee. While none of us here today would even attempt to try that, the fact remains we own and we operate a landfill in Smith County. Smith County residents are allowed to dump for free at our 6 convenience sites when they are open. Not one penny of Smith County local tax dollars goes into running that landfill. We maintain and run it by long-standing contracts with neighboring counties. Through the hard work of Johnny Lee and his crew at the landfill, through efficient and effective operation, it's in a much better shape financially today as well. But bureaucratic and regulatory challenges are surfacing every day. The Commissioner of the Department of Environment and Conservation has stated numerous times that counties need to get out of the landfill business and sell out to the private sector. While I'm steadfast in my beliefs that the government should not compete with the private sector, I view solid waste as different. By partnering with neighboring counties, we can gain revenue, but it also keeps solid waste costs down for our neighbors in other counties and allows us to dump for free. TDEC has already forced White County to sell out, and it appears we are the next target. There may come a day when the Commission does vote to sell it, but it will be because we were regulated out, not my choice. As we continue to prove them wrong and stay in compliance, the task gets harder every day. As a mayor buddy told me the other day, the trash does not stop, no matter what's going on around you. And it's also been stated in studies and articles that the cost of disposing solid waste may catch or pass the cost to educate our students in the next 15 to 20 years. We will work to not let that happen here. In closing, I will say we've come a long way in 6 years. We still face many challenges, but also have numerous opportunities to maintain and improve the county for its 20,000 residents. My promise to you is to be the best steward I can for the county and your tax dollars. May God bless you, and may God bless Smith County. And now I will introduce our featured speaker, former Vice President, Mr. Al Gore. Mr. Al Gore spoke at the groundbreaking and every 10-year anniversary since the establishment of the Chamber. So join me in welcoming former Vice President Al Gore.
I'm so happy about your life.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm saying I'm so happy about your health news. That's wonderful. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the privilege I have of speaking at this 50th anniversary of the Chamber. I've been looking forward to it, and I want to thank Jeff Mason for his very generous words of introduction. There's so many distinguished guests here, I'm not going to even try to acknowledge everybody, but Bill Woodard, thank you for your work as Executive Director, and to all of the board members and the officials, and Justin Malden, President of the Board of the Chamber of Commerce, and other distinguished guests. Thank you all very much to state officials and the mayors of Gordonsville and South Carthage, and council members and all the rest. Thank you very, very much. This group obviously is central to the success of Smith County, such as it has been and going forward. So I really do appreciate the invitation here. And I want to congratulate the people who won these awards. I know a lot of thought went into that, and a lot of work went into winning them. Earlier, there was mention, Bill, of Jerry Futrell, and I just wanted to say a word since you brought up Jerry. I miss him a lot. He was one of my family's most cherished friends. My parents, really, I'm thinking of mainly, but me too. And he was, of course, the first leader of the Smith County Chamber of Commerce. He was an incredible advocate for this county and a protector of this community. And in addition to the leadership of the chamber, he was a city councilor, a county commissioner, hospital administrator, and so much more. But to me, he was a very close and true friend. He was especially close to my parents, as I mentioned, and I remember how many Saturday evenings he would be up there at the farm watching Lawrence Welk on television. And Roberta Neal was often over, my mother's dear friend. Anyway, Jerry was really quite a guy. And he went to Oslo with me when they gave that award out. And Eddie West is here. I'll remember when that happened, because it really brought me down to earth to read in the Courier, Gore wins, same prize, Hull won. That kept my feet right on the ground. You can't get a big head that way. But anyway, Carthage, you know, to me, and Smith County to me is just my home and my bedrock, and I spend more time here in the county now than I spend anywhere else. I have a home in Nashville, but when the pandemic started, I figured, well, you know, you're doing all these remote Zoom calls, and I can do those from the farm. And so I came out here, and I basically haven't left since then, but I still go back to Nashville, but I'm here quite a bit. And this Chamber of Commerce has built this community in important ways into the wonderful place that it is now. Not everywhere has the same sense of community. They have an anniversary for the Chamber of Commerce. They may have a dozen people show up. There are more than 200 people here this evening. And leaders of this county, leaders of businesses and organizations in this county. And when I ran for president the first time, I made a speech out there in front of the courthouse when I said Smith County is the kind of place where people know about it when you're born, and they care about it when you die. And it's so much more than that to me. I won't spend too much time on that. I've spoken in the past, but people take care of one another in this county, and it just means the world to me. There's no place like it for me. And I don't, you know, I think that we've got some good times ahead of us, but there's, as always, a lot of work to do. And I was listening to your challenges, Mr. Mayor. Asphalt is expensive these days. And anyway, I'm honored to have connections with the Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for mentioning that. I've spoken at other anniversaries. And when the Chamber was first founded 50 years ago, I have a photo of that occasion. And somebody told me that that same photo is in the Chamber's office. It was the ribbon cutting, and it was in the Courier, and I asked for a copy of it. And we dedicated the Chamber's first office building. That was in 1979. And I was looking at that photo. One of the other people in that photo is Pat Geho. He's not here this evening, could not be here, but he was executive. He had your job at that time, Billy, and he remains a dear friend, and I do want to recognize all of the work that he's done on behalf of this organization and the people of Smith County. My father was a member of the Smith County Chamber of Commerce, and some of you will remember a few of his businesses. Gore Supply. My first cousin, Oliver Gore, ran that for so long ago. As a kid, I used to love to hang out there. They had fishing poles and guns and boats and motors. There were not too many boats, but in the basement they had Evinrude outdoor motors for boats. And anyway, and also Cumberland Feed Mills. The late Grady Nixon was his business partner in that business. And when I was a kid, I used to ride. The men would put those sacks of feed on the hand trucks, and I'd jump on top of them, and they'd put up with me. And anyway, it was great fun to go to both of those businesses. And then later in his life, and when he and my mother were old, they ran a flea market in South Carthage, and that was quite a business. I don't want to say too much about that, but that was a good one to end on, I'll say that. And of course, the family farm. My father and mother bought that farm up on the Caney Fork in 1945 after the war, and I was born 3 years later. And we lived on Fisher Avenue until I was 10 years old, and then moved up to the farm. We lived on a trailer one year when, of course, I was here in the summers and Christmas and so forth, and it was like a military family being on temporary duty in Washington, D.C. That was the way my parents explained it to my sister and me. This was home. Living in a little hotel room up there was never really anything comparable. But when they passed, I began to convert that farm, and I'm proud that Caney Fork Farms is now a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I was happy to see its logo come up along with the others that have been up here on this screen behind me. And I've seen the central role that this chamber plays in the Smith County community firsthand over these past 50 years. You connect the people of the county to one another and build bridges to communities across Tennessee and throughout the United States. And bridges are important. I might mention our bridges here at the confluence of these two important rivers, Cumberland and the Caney Fork. Imagine for a minute if we did not have the historic Cordell Hull Bridge. And some of you will remember what happened. The new bridge was built under a program called the Bridge Replacement Program. And I was surprised to learn that one of the conditions of building the new bridge was that Carthage and Smith County had to tear down the old bridge. Well, that didn't seem right to me. And if you are in the western part of the county, it definitely doesn't seem right, wouldn't have seemed right to you. And well, you get the story. But anyway, I went to Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, who was the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee at that time. And these days, it's very popular to complain about what they call earmarks and elected officials getting things done for their home community and so forth. Well, I don't give a darn about that. We needed to keep that bridge, and I explained it to Senator Byrd, and he said, okay, I understand now, we're going to save your bridge. And so now it had to be repaired pretty extensively, and I had some conversations with members of the chamber back then at that time. But that Cordell Hull Bridge has connected Carthage to much of the rest of the world since 1936 and before. And so having two bridges, I think, has been important. And of course, its namesake, Cordell Hull, really, my father particularly, but my father and mother looked up to Hull so much. My grandfather, maybe I should put it this way. My father was an immigrant to Smith County. When he was 1 year old, moved from Jackson County. and they settled over near Commerce. But when my grandfather, Alan Gore, Alan and Margie Gore lived on Fisher Avenue, just one house up from us. But when my grandfather, Alan Gore, was a young man and a boy, a teenager, he floated logs down the Cumberland River with Cordell Hull when he was a young man. And that's where the friendship between the Gore family and the Hull family really started. And my grandfather worked a farm all his life, and but my father had the opportunity, because of his father's boyhood friendship with Hull, to ask him to be a mentor to him. They just thought Cordell Hull was just the greatest man that had ever lived. I remember the day he died. I was 7 years old in the living room of our little house on Fisher Avenue, and the newspaper headline in the Nashville paper was real big. Cordell Hull had died up in D.C., and it was really a time of grieving for my family. But in any case, I think it's important to reflect on the journey Cordell Hull made in his life, because he was born up in what they call the Star community in Pickett County, near the Kentucky line. And of course, he became a congressman from Carthage, and then briefly a senator, and then was Secretary of State for longer than any person in American history has been Secretary of State. And Franklin Roosevelt called him the father of the United Nations. And his Tennessee roots were definitely crucial to all that he accomplished in the world. And that is one of the reasons why I kind of came to feel that we ought to celebrate him more. The county does that already, but when I had an opportunity to buy his home on Main Street, I said, yeah, well, let's see if we can't fix that up and do something with it. And some of you may have seen some of the renovations underway there. And we have plans to make it an attraction for people to come to Smith County to see what's there, and boost the chamber in the process, I hope. It'll be a while before that gets done and when it's finished, but I'm determined to do it because I think it'll be good for the county, but also it'll be a way for me to honor Hull and to honor my parents' strong feelings about him and give him more of the recognition that I think that he has deserved. And of course, what Hull did in his time was truly remarkable. I've mentioned some of the things, and I see this house as an opportunity to teach more about all the things that have gone on in this county. And I've talked with the Heritage Museum folks, and maybe it'll work out to give a more prominent home. I like where it is now, and I've taken friends there a good bit, but maybe that'll find a home on Main Street in this new facility. And there's so many interesting stories that people don't really know about Smith County. Take, for example, I guess a lot of people do know this, but some of you here may not know that the very first star on the Grand Ole Opry was from Smith County, DeFord Bailey, a black man who had polio as a child. And to distract him, his parents gave him a harmonica. And I never heard him play, but I've heard recordings. And people who spent time with him said he could make that harmonica do anything. And he's the one from right here in Smith County that came up with the name of the Grand Ole Opry. They had on the radio station, WSM Radio, one of the clear channels, of course, they had an opera in New York City that came on before this brand new country music show. And DeFord Bailey was the first star, and he said, well, you've heard the opera, now you're going to hear the Grand Ole Opry. He played 49 of the 52 shows in the first year of the Grand Ole Opry, and he had a 45-minute solo block on his own, just him out there on the stage, and he held the audience, and he was really quite something. But of course, in those days, segregation was terrible, and when the country stars would go on the road, he hooked up with Uncle Dave Macon, and they developed a system where he would pose as Uncle Dave Macon's valet so that he could stay in the hotels that otherwise would not allow a black man to stay there. And speaking of the Grand Ole Opry, I didn't mean to say this, but I used to tell a joke from the Grand Ole Opry, and I resurrected it the other day, and I was thinking about it driving over here, thinking about the Grand Ole Opry. When I was congressman from here, I used to do these town hall meetings all over the 25 counties of the district, for the old 4th District, and I'd listen to the Grand Ole Opry on car radio. And one night I was driving back to the farm after the last meeting, and Cousin Minnie Pearl was on the radio. And she told a joke, and I have told that all over the world. And I haven't told it in many years, but somebody asked me not long ago, how are we doing? How do you feel about what we're doing to try to fix the climate crisis? And I said, well, I feel fine. And I said, that reminds me of a story that Cousin Minnie Pearl told. And she told about a farmer who was involved in an accident, and he sued the other driver for damages. And the other driver didn't want to pay, of course, and they went to court. And the lawyer for this other driver put this farmer on the witness stand. And he said, now, isn't it true that immediately after this accident you said, I feel fine? And the farmer said, well, it's not that simple. You see, I was taking my cow to town in the back of my truck, and this fellow came driving across the center line, and the lawyer said, well, Your Honor, we don't hear a long involved story. Direct the witness. Just answer the question, yes or no. Did you or did you not say immediately after the accident, I feel fine? Farmer said, well, I was leading up to that. You see, I was taking my cow to town in the back of my truck, and the fella came driving across the center line and ran right smack dab into my truck and knocked it over. And I was on one side and the cow was on the other, and the highway patrol came up and took one look at that cow and said, she is suffering, pulled out his gun and shot her right between the eyes. Came around to my side of the truck and said, how do you feel? So I said, I feel fine. And that's the way I feel about a lot of things going on in Washington and around the country these days. But we can also learn about the pioneer movement in our country by studying the history of one of Smith County's founding fathers, Captain William Walton. And he's, of course, well known for establishing the Walton Road that connected Nashville to Knoxville and was later traveled by pioneers and families moving west. And, of course, was a major component in the supply chains that made up the Civil War. Inns and hotels along that Walton Road became an essential part of the pioneer movement that swept across the state. And one of those hotels that's known to this day is the Hotel Walton. Now, I read an opinion piece by Eddie West, who's here somewhere, because he keeps us current on everything that goes on in Smith County. And you ought to give him an award sometime. You could probably get in the paper, get a picture of it. But anyway, two of my daughters worked for Eddie, and I'm a big fan. But he wrote an opinion piece saying, the Walton Hotel is not the way that thing ought to be named. He said it more eloquently than I'm saying it. The original sign said Hotel Walton. He said, I just think it sounds more distinguished if you call it the Hotel Walton instead of the Walton Hotel. So we've officially changed the name back to the Hotel Walton, if that makes a difference. But it's changed hands many times, but there's always been a shared vision among the community here that the hotel can and should play some role in driving commerce in the region and having a really world-class destination boutique hotel. Boutique means there are not many rooms in it, 13 or 14. It can be a recruiting tool to get businesses to come and take a look here. Can be a place where people want to stay, maybe if they want to go to the Cordell Hull Museum, whenever that gets going. And so that is my reason for renovating it. And as some of you know, I'm in the process of revitalizing it, refurbishing it now. I'm sorry for the inconvenience for some of the folks on Main Street. I see some heads nodding there, but the windows had to all be replaced, and so we really had to do this. And it won't take very long, it'll be done fairly soon. And I want to say thank you to all of the businesses on Main Street, seriously, for your patience and understanding with these renovations, and we're doing our very best to minimize any disruption. I will share more news in the future about the hotel. We're still in the process now, but I think it's going to be a real. I'm hoping it'll be a very welcome and fine addition to Main Street, and I hope that it will help bring more commerce to our county. I want to conclude by looking toward the future. There is certainly no shortage of challenges facing small communities like ours, from inflation and the rising cost of living to the high interest rates. We were talking at dinner about the cost of homes now, and my goodness, what a big increase there's been. So many renters moving into Smith County now. I guess we have to say we're close enough to Nashville now that people that can't afford rent down there come and live here and commute. But anyway, I know what that's like. I lived here when I commuted to Nashville before I ran for Congress the first time back in 1976. But there is also no shortage of opportunities for Smith County and for our region. And I think we can look forward to the future with a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. Take, for example, Smith County's very rich history of agriculture and family farming. How can we help farmers in our region gain access to the tools and the networks and the investments that will help ensure that they're sustainable for generations to come? That's one of the things that I'm trying to do at Caney Fork Farms up just this side of the Caney Fork on the way to Elmwood. And about 10 years ago, I started converting it to what they call regenerative agriculture. It's a fancy term that really describes a lot of practices that my grandfather used back when he moved here so long ago. And all of our grandparents used to use crop rotation and cover crops and all of these techniques. They've been spiffed up a little bit. Part of the problem, you know, when I learned lessons on the farm that I live on now, my father was a great teacher. He and my mother were part of the generation that were really motivated to stop soil erosion. Of course, the Dust Bowl and all of the harm that came back in those days. When the John Deere tractor first was put into wide use, people didn't realize that just plowing everything up made the soil very vulnerable to erosion, wind erosion and water erosion. And of course, the Dust Bowl directly resulted from that. And so he taught me how to stop gullies and so forth. And one time he said, "Son, I was about 6 years old. We're gonna go find the most fertile soil on this farm." And of course, he had it all planned out, and we went to different places and finally got to the place that had the best soils in the river bottom. And I held it in my hand, and it was black and moist. And I'm embarrassed it took me another 50 years to understand why it was black. That's the carbon in the soil. And it was moist because when the soil is enriched with carbon, that supports all the life forms, the fungi and the little critters and all of that. That's really the magic of agriculture. It's not just pouring chemicals into the dirt and planting seeds and hoping. I mean, of course, there have been people that have farmed that way. But now there is a big movement to try to put carbon back in the soil to make it more resilient. Always keep roots in the soil. Put trees in the pastures. That would have been, my father would never have gone along with that, but that's now one of the ways to do it. And rotational grazing. In the growing season, we move our livestock every day or two, and they just do the grass tops, and they don't hard pack it down to where it's a hard pack. And these techniques are actually getting to be really important and popular around the country, and I'm hoping around the world. And in any case, Asher Wright is my farm director, and he and the team that we have up there are working hard to show the benefits of this new kind of farming, which is kind of an old, much of it is old, as I've said. And we have a conference every year up there, and we have farming and soil experts come in from around the country and from places like Ohio State, and we're a research center as well. We do the soil carbon drilling to take samples all the time, because if we can successfully build up the soil carbon, that's the best way to take it back out of there, because we got too much up there. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into a long thing on that. But have you noticed the weather's been getting kind of funny? Yeah. And anyway, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to solve that as well. And solving it is not just about farmers, but Caney Fork Farms right here in Smith County will be a place for regional meetings of farmers who are moving into this new technique. And I'm excited to have them come. Maybe some of them will stay in the Hotel Walton, I don't know. But, anyway. So in that spirit, I would just like to say I'm proud to do my part as well as I can in strengthening this community, building the strength of Smith County. I congratulate the Chamber on 50 years of conscious and meaningful investment in the people and the businesses of Smith County. Through your work, you are not only enhancing economic development and helping to provide good jobs, you're bringing innovation and opportunity to our region. I'm proud to be a member of the Chamber. I'm proud to be a business owner here in Smith County, and I look forward to working with the Chamber for many years to come. Thank you very much.